כן, אין טוב?
רגע, מה, זה גורים, לא? אלה גורים? ועד איזה גיל? כן, אתה מוריד פה את הגיל הזה, עד איזה גיל? וכמה גורים? מתי הוא יוצא מכאן למעבדות? 2, 3?
לא, כמה זה משחק? זה דרישה.
אתה יכול להוציא אותו גם בגיל הזה עם משקף שלו. מה, איזה קוף? איזה קוף אתה יחפש? מבחינת ותק בזמן זה יכול למעוד. אלה כאדם, כאזרח, אני נגד ישראל. לא תשכנע אותי, לא על סכרת ולא על סרטן.
אתה יכול לדבר חופשי, אנחנו לא שופט, הוא שופט. תגיד לי אחר כך, תשמע.
כאדם, כאזרח, אני נגד ישראל. לא תשכנע אותי, לא על סכרת ולא על סרטן.
אתה יכול לדבר חופשי, אנחנו לא שופט, הוא שופט. תגיד לי אחר כך, תשמע.
מבחינת ותק בזמן ש... זה יכול למור. הילד...
מכיר? מלטון?
רגע, מה? זה גורים, לא? אלה גורים? ועד איזה גיל? כן, תוריד פה את הגיל הזה, עד איזה גיל? וכמה גורים? מתי הוא יוצא מכאן למעבדות? 2, 3?
לא, 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 לא,
אתה יכול לעשות את גם בגיל הזה עם משחק אבל כמה זה רואה? מה, איזה קוף? איזה קוף אני חושב? מבחינת ותק בזמן זה יכול למעוד אלה לא תשכנע אותי לא על סכרת ולא על
אתה יכול לדבר חופשי, אנחנו לא שופט, הוא שופט. תגיד לי אחר כך, תשמע.
The rainforest of Indonesia in Southeast Asia, home to the orangutan, one of man's closest relatives with 97% of its genetic makeup identical to our own. Indeed, the very name orangutan means people of the forest. And as with humans, a baby orangutan for the first years of its life is totally dependent on its ever-protective mother. The mother is defense against most things, except man himself. Though the orangutan is already facing extinction and protected by international laws, poachers slaughter mothers to catch babies for a hideous but highly profitable black market trade. For the baby orangutans that survive the onslaught, this is the first step of a cruel journey, one that delivers them from their forest habitat to pet markets, circuses, unscrupulous zoos and private collections throughout the world.
Let's begin a great monkey show, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, for our next treatment. Hey, folks, you saw them with Clint Eastwood in Every Which Way But Loose. You liked it, huh? Next time on my show, here is Puppy. Take it out. A midget in a monkey suit, but I love them anyway, little money makers.
Highly intelligent and trainable, orangutans have great popular and commercial appeal. Some of the considerable world demand for them can be met quite legally, but only through a limited supply of captive-born animals like these. Changing hands at up to £20,000 each, orangutans are precious and profitable assets. But as a hidden camera reveals backstage at a Las Vegas show, trainers demand absolute obedience to get their money's worth.
are funny. You should see the ones in a casino pulling the slot machines.
Tragically, the orangutan's very appeal has created such great demand that it can't be met by captive-born animals alone. And so it's with an eye for the main chance that poachers and international smugglers step in to make their killing.
You like it?
Orangutans are on the verge of extinction. I used to think that the only problem was the destruction of the tropical rainforest. But in the last few years, I have changed my mind. The animal trade is almost as dire in terms of putting orangutans on the brink of extinction. It's unbelievable, the vast numbers of animals involved in this trade.
Inside Story took secret cameras into the shadowy world of the ape traders to unravel a plot to smuggle orangutans to Russia, expose traffic and wild-caught babies through a bogus zoo, and identify the devious tricks of a trade that can all too easily evade wildlife laws. Wild orangutans live only on 2 islands, Borneo and Sumatra in Southeast Asia. Their sale is banned by the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. CITES, as it's known, has 110 member countries, but traffickers are quick to target those countries who are not members. On the far eastern island of Taiwan, recent affluence has led to a consumer boom. An unregulated craze for designer pets pushed the street price for a smuggled orangutan as high as £2,000, a price so many were prepared to pay that the trade got out of control. In Taipei, the capital, the density of orangutans is now greater than in their natural habitat. Coming in usually by boat from Indonesia, they've been sold mainly through pet shops along with other exotic species. Many are recruited as nightlife novelties.
So originally, Romeo was supposed to go to a nightclub, and in the nightclub he was going to be used as a photographic prop. They were going to take pictures of him with nightclub patrons. If that had happened, it would have been something that he would have been doing every day, constantly. There would have been the flash from the camera. And after 6 months, 8 months, he would have developed cataracts, and he would have gone blind within likely 1 year. So some people, when they heard about it, some people, when they heard about it, donated some money to purchase him and then presented him to the foundation.
Like many in Taiwan, Mr. Low treats his own pet orangutan just like one of the family. A craze kicked off some years ago by a popular TV show starring one of these endangered animals.
They're very appealing. They have a very human-like quality to them. Same kind of quality that an infant has. You know, big liquid brown eyes staring out at you. They're not particularly aggressive. They cling to you. They look up to you if you hold them. They're very, very appealing. They have a halo of bright red hair that looks like perhaps they were electrocuted, almost like little Einsteins. They're very appealing until, of course, they start maturing. And this is the problem that we now have in Taiwan, where orangutans, ex-pets, are literally being abandoned on street corners, in front of department stores, in the middle of Taipei.
Taipei has now been nicknamed Mad Monkey City. Lucky animals are rescued and sent to a local zoo.
We estimate anywhere between 700 and 1,000 animals are on the island right now that's still alive. The number that have died on the way here or after arriving, we have no way of knowing. Anywhere between 5 and 6 animals die to get one animal here alive.
The Taiwan government has been forced to take action. It's now illegal to sell orangutans, and an official policy of repatriation is underway. Romeo, saved from the nightclub, and 9 others intercepted by customs, are going home, back to the forests of Indonesia. The government makes sure it's a well-publicized occasion. The 10 returning orangutans, or the Taiwan 10 as they became known to a fond press entourage, were not the world's first smuggled orangutans to travel home. That precedent was set last year after an extraordinary discovery in Bangkok, Thailand, a discovery that was eventually to reveal the truly worldwide dimensions of the ape trade. At Bangkok International Airport, cargo handlers were unloading transit luggage from Singapore routed on to Eastern Europe. From boxes marked live birds, they heard low-pitched cries and whimpers. All in all, 3 boxes were taken for examination. When the first was x-rayed, they discovered 2 rare Siamang gibbons. But in the other 2, something every bit as surprising, but more alarming. 6 baby orangutans, with a potential black market value of more than £100,000. They were soon dubbed the Bangkok 6. All were weak and dehydrated. 2 were in critical condition.
It's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. These crates were almost like little coffins. Just unbelievable. 6 orangutans in 2 crates like this, just crammed in. They could barely move. And it's not surprising that under such conditions, smuggled animals have an incredibly high degree of mortality. I mean, it's just, they die like flies.
The only person so far convicted for his part in the smuggling attempt is German animal dealer Kurt Schaefer, the courier who brought the boxes through Bangkok. But he was just one of a widespread network of people in a complex and secret operation. Schaefer agreed to talk to us. Though sometimes reluctant to say too much, he insists he regrets what he did.
Because I actually never saw these monkeys myself. Then I heard after how in extremely bad condition they've been and packed upside down, I felt really sorry about that. I never would touch a thing like that again.
Yeah, but you did get involved. Didn't you know how they'd be packed?
What do you mean?
I mean, you didn't realize the suffering they went through, you know, the conditions?
I never saw them. I heard that after from the papers and from the news in Bangkok, how they were being kept and extremely small, packed, upside down, chipped. Oh, that's cruel. I mean, they look like human babies, huh? But I never realized, actually, that they're killing the mothers and how the cruel is what they actually do to the monkeys.
The 6 rescued orphans of the trade, the Bangkok 6, were finally returned to a rehabilitation center in central Kalimantan, a remote part of Indonesian Borneo. Peter van der Bunt, a German biologist with the International Primate Protection League, is going to visit the center, now preparing to receive the 10 orangutans from Taiwan. But the rehabilitation process is far from straightforward. Any attempt to reintroduce rescued baby orangutans to the wild is slow, fraught with difficulties, and carries no guarantees. Already, 3 of the Bangkok 6 have died as a result of their ordeal.
Most orangutans, the majority, seems to die during transport. Orangutan infants are, like all infant great apes, enormously fragile. They are susceptible for physical and various mental diseases, and they can't survive without trained infant treatment. This is one of the Bangkok 6, happily returned to the forests of Indonesia again. But compared to the actual number of orangutans which are smuggled out of Indonesia each year, it's indeed nothing. And if the smuggling of orangutans on the domestic and the international markets keeps going like this, the species will be wiped out soon. So we have to do everything to stop the animal dealers all over the world.
Many captured orangutans are taken to the capital of Indonesia, Jakarta, a threshold for international trade. Indonesia has officially protected the orangutan since 1931. To own or sell a wild one requires personal permission from the president. Inside Story went with Peter van der Bunt to the notorious Pramuka animal market.
Monkey? Sir, monkey?
As soon as we entered, we were offered monkeys.
Any monkey?
Are they bringing a gibbon? They're bringing a gibbon? What was that monkey there?
Leaf monkey also.
Within minutes, we were offered a rare and officially protected siamang, its teeth filed to the gums to stop it biting. And then the word orangutan. Although wary of us, the traders were nonetheless eager to clinch a sale.
One.
Babies or...
Oh, baby.
Baby?
Baby. Only one. How much? 1 million.
1 million rupiah, about £250, was the price finally settled on. For a brief while, Inside Story owned a 9-month-old female orangutan, whom we christened BB.
We'll see later, probably.
One of the first things we did was report the sellers to the police. But before that, we took our distressed charge to the care of a sanctuary from where it is planned she'll be returned to the forest. The street traders may be the start of the smuggling chain, but are not the ones exporting them abroad. This is the job of middlemen, big-time dealers with international contacts. Peter van der Bunt, posing as an animal dealer himself, is going to meet one of Jakarta's biggest and richest, one accused by some of a role in the Bangkok 6 case. This is the second time Peter has gone undercover to meet Muhammad Hadi.
I met him 2 months ago, and at that time I was still too suspicious to provide any kind of illegal animals. And so we're trying again, and if he trusts me, he may offer orangutans. We never know. It's possible. I mean, those guys are really clever, and it's really risky for them to offer illegal animals here in Jakarta. And therefore we just have to see what happens.
German-educated Hadi runs a company called Hasco, which legally trades in thousands of birds and reptiles.
Ich habe mich auf diesen Brief mal umgehört, wer mit Orang-Utans handelt. Und da hat man mir deinen Namen gegeben.
Nie gesehen, nie.
If Mohammed Hadi has anything to do with orangutans, he was giving nothing away today. But an intelligence document from Australian Customs identifies Hadi as one suspect amongst others in an animal trading network. It also connects him to a dealer who has smuggled orangutans. We spoke a second time to Kurt Schaefer. His bird deals with Mohammed Hadi have given him first-hand experience of the Indonesian trader.
Do you know that he is involved or has been involved with orangutans?
Yes, I know that. I saw orangutans by myself in his place before. He showed me he kept them in cages 50 or 50 centimeters and extremely bad condition. And birds or monkeys suffer there under extremely bad circumstances. He's only interested in the money he makes.
Peter van der Bunt was keen to see inside one of Mohammed Hadi's holding stations. When he knew Hadi to be away, he took us in as potential animal buyers. The foreman agreed to show us around. The station was massive. There were countless birds that flapped and pecked at one another in their cages. The dead were hung on wire mesh. In some cages we saw mammals. And we also found primates, leaf monkeys. Hadi does not have the required license to deal in anything other than birds and reptiles. We weren't able to see inside warehouses beyond this enclosure.
He offered me orangutans before. He had excellent connections in Indonesia.
You're saying he's an influential man?
Yeah, yeah. Money talks.
Indonesian officials say investigations have found nothing against Mohammed Hadi, but were willing to demonstrate to us how well they enforce their wildlife laws. They invited us to go with them on a raid of a suspected animal smuggler.
Selamat pagi. Saudara sekalian, pagi hari ini, seperti kita ketahui bahwa di dalam Undang-Undang Konservasi Sumber Daya Alam Hayati dan Ekosistemnya, sanksi yang dikenakan cukup berat, yaitu bisa dikenakan hukuman selama 5 tahun dan denda sebanyak 100 juta.
The target was an animal dealer suspected of handling endangered species. Within minutes, numerous protected creatures were found and confiscated. It was an impressive action, perhaps a bit too impressive.
Nah, siap, Pak? Tanya surat tugasnya dulu. Ya, nggak usah. Nanti. Hah? Sudah ada siap, Pak ya? Yuk. Oke.
We realized the whole thing had been a set-up job to impress us. The guilty party was played by a police officer, someone we'd seen quite by chance that morning at headquarters. But there was an added irony. In their desire to impress us and put on a convincing show, the officials had commandeered a real animal showroom. As the animals were loaded up to be returned from whence they came, we also recognized the actual owner, who was watching the whole charade with considerable amusement. His name is Abu Wijaya, a self-confessed orangutan smuggler. In 1987, he signed a confession admitting his part in an attempt to take 2 orangutans to Mexico via Paris. The game was up after one orangutan escaped from its crate in the cargo shed. Kurt Schaefer knew more about who was behind the deal.
So I thought orangutans can't be only Hadi. So I called him in Indonesia and said, hey, Hadi, there's an orangutan from you walking in the cargo section. He said to me, hey, no, I say, cannot be. I say, sure. You switch on the TV, you can see in Paris. So he said to me that he was chipping on another name. He said, But he was worried that the guy will tell who is behind that. And Hardy had to cover up the story after I heard that the guy brought himself a new car. So we knew Hardy paid him up.
Orangutans smuggled from Indonesia, like these two found in Paris, are typically sent down devious and roundabout routes to their destinations. To Bangkok 6, especially so. The first staging post on their grueling journey was Singapore, Southeast Asia's trading crossroads. Whether the 6 came into Singapore by sea or air, nobody's saying. But there are clues to what happened next. Documents acquired by Inside Story reveal the extent of the plot and the intrigue. Messages giving detailed shipping instructions were being sent from someone with the single initial M and being forwarded to the Singapore connection, a Mr. Lee. The messages were sent to a company called Honey Pets, with an address that doubles as a unisex hairdressing salon. Honey Pets, together with the name Lee, became familiar to the International Primate Protection League in the States. Dr. Shirley McGreal received confidential calls from someone claiming inside knowledge about the Bangkok 6.
In one of the many conversations I had with this man who claims he was a participant in the deal, he did tell me that James Lee of Honey Pets in Singapore is the intermediate point for these orangutan shipments and a regular processor of orangutans, and that he brings them in from Indonesia and then gets them sent on their way via Bangkok or directly to the Soviet Union.
And it was according to this pattern that the Bangkok 6 were to be sold to a Russian state trading company called Poddingtorg. At one point, they inquired anxiously when the 3 pairs of orangutans would arrive in Moscow. The inquiry was forwarded once again to James Lee of Honey Pets. To reach the Soviet Union, the shipment had to beat complex controls. Like all members of the CITES Treaty, Singapore regulates all wildlife exports and issues permits for the many that are legal. It watches out for any shipments that are contrary to CITES rules. These Indonesian birds, part of the vast trade passing through Singapore, are checked off against permits. But nobody will guarantee the system is foolproof.
All these procedures are put in place to ensure that trade is done legally. But, like all things, where there is a lucrative market, people will always attempt to smuggle, would attempt to make a quick buck.
The attempt to smuggle the 6 orangutans directly to Moscow by air successfully evaded Singapore's controls. They got as far as the airport cargo shed. At the last minute, they were refused by Aeroflot, but only because their flight was overbooked and the cargo hold full. A second attempt had to be made. Kurt Schaefer was enlisted to help fulfill Moscow's overdue order.
A friend of mine asked me to help him to move the orangutans from Singapore to Moscow because he had a problem in Singapore to ship them by cargo straight to Moscow. The arrangement being that a guy meet me in Singapore, and I had a newspaper under my arm that he recognized me. The guy came with 3 boxes, and I asked him what happened. How can we so small boxes with belt boxes, right?
You're surprised they were so small?
I've been very surprised, yeah. Very small. I said, how can be orangutans inside? He said, no, don't worry. They are babies. No? And they asked me for my passport and my ticket. I gave it to them. They took the boss and they make the whole check-in. I not been at the counter, not at all.
This time, the way round CITES and customs controls was amazingly simple. The crates were checked onto a passenger flight like suitcases, a loophole widely exploited by smugglers. Labels saying live birds, it was hoped, would account for any noise and movement in the boxes. Who asked you? Who was your friend who asked you to do this?
I don't want to say any names.
Schaefer took off, the baby orangutans in the hold. Also on board now were 2 rare Siamang gibbons, a vital part of a new arrangement to get the orangutans to Moscow via the Yugoslavian capital of Belgrade. Schaefer changed planes in Bangkok and flew on to Belgrade in Eastern Europe, unaware that his valuable charges were no longer with him. The plot was foiled. Between flights, alert officials suspicious of the crates put them through X-ray. The 2 siamangs in one crate were in fair health, but the orangutans were desperately ill. Mr. Boonlord, as confiscating officer, would they have survived if they'd gone on?
If they stayed at the airport one more day, I think that all of them must dead. So we decided to take them to our custody. It's a bad condition, so it needs patient care. So we took them to Wildlife Fund Thailand volunteer.
The sanctuaries to which the 6 were taken specialize in the care of gibbons and other primates rescued from the animal trade.
The forestry department called me and said that there'd been a seizure of 6 at the airport. I went to the forest department at almost midnight on the Thursday night to pick them up. They were in an appalling condition, starving, screaming, bloated stomachs. 3 of them were grey. The smallest one and one other were comatose. So we just wrapped them in blankets with hot water bottles and brought them home.
The Bangkok 6 were intercepted on a well-used smuggling route between Southeast Asia and Eastern Europe. Whilst this attempt was an act of pure concealment, the animals were hidden and without any papers. Other shipments involving Thailand have based the deception on paperwork itself.
Well, one morning I got a letter from Poland in the mail, and there was this letter saying, "I think I ought to tell you that my zoo has just imported these shipment. They had brought in 2 orangutans and they brought in 12 gibbons, and that the baby gibbons were in horrible condition. 9 of them had died and the others were very, very sick. He told me that these gibbons had been shown on Polish TV and that they had come in through a company called Interzoo, Slaughter Interzoo.
Slaughter Interzoo, run by animal trader Marley Slaughter, is based in the German town of Neuwied. The International Primate Protection League's Peter van der Bunt has been trying to challenge her about the source of the primates she's been acquiring.
Hallo? Ja, schönen guten Tag, hier ist Peter van der Bunt. Ich hätte gerne mit Fräulein Marley Slaughter geredet.
Die ist nicht da. Meine Tochter ist in Afrika.
In Afrika ist sie zurzeit? Kann ich Sie da irgendwo erreichen vielleicht?
Oh, das ist schlecht. Ich kann nicht. Sie hat kein Telefon, dann ich muss warten, bis sie mir ihre Nachricht gibt. Und um was ging es da?
Geschäftliches.
Ach so. Ja, das ist...
Dankeschön.
Bitte,
Wiederhören. Well, obviously she's at the moment in Tanzania, in Africa. Probably looking for more animals now.
This was not the first time the League had tried to contact Slaughter. Previously, their investigations had prompted a reply, one claiming complete innocence.
Marley Slaughter sent me a letter explaining that these animals had all been captive-born in a zoo in Cambodia, and she phoned me and talked about it. She even sent me documents on the stationery of this Kokang Zoo and all the export permits saying that the animals were born in Kokang Zoo.
Captive-born endangered primates can be traded quite legally, and this is Slaughter's defense, that her supplier is a legitimate zoo on a Cambodian island.
There's no zoo there. It's just a place where the animals are smuggled out of Thailand by boat onto Gokong. Then they're taken again by boat up through Cambodia to Phnom Penh and put on planes, which fly them out into Eastern Europe or other countries, very often transiting in Thailand, transshipping in Thailand. But I suspect, have been many Thai animals going out that way. But there's no such place as the Gokong Zoo.
In truth, Gokong Zoo is the holding station of a trader, as revealed in his letter to a known smuggler. The trader is Kampang Plerthen, based not in Cambodia but Bangkok, Thailand. When we visited his company offices undercover, he had ready advice not only about the local availability of orangutans, but also their export.
Some people have orangutan, but believe me, they come cheap. You can give me the list, what you need, and they can export. Yeah, hence certificate, export license, certificate of origin, 3 kind of paper you can have.
Indeed, Kampang used documents exactly like these to ship orangutans and gibbons to Poland, the ones arranged through Slaughter Inter Zoo. Furthermore, Kampang's involvement was clearly known to Marley's Slaughter. She was in direct communication with him.
Later, a telex fell into our hands just 3 days after the arrival of the orangutan and gibbons at the Polish zoo, telling him that 12 baby gibbons had arrived and they were in horrible condition with several of them dead. But the 2 big red birds had arrived safely. And, of course, big red birds is the animal smugglers' code name for orangutans.
I think that the animal dealers involved are just trying to fool the animal buyers in Europe and America. And these animal buyers are so greedy for animals that they don't care. If they use their brains, they would think that there's no zoos in Cambodia or Laos, and these people just want animals. They don't care where they come from.
2 orangutans Slaughter bought from Kampang's bogus zoo, Quen and Duang, were used by unsuspecting Czechoslovakian filmmakers in, of all things, a film about endangered species. When they first arrived in Czechoslovakia, Quen and Duang needed intense care during quarantine at Ústí nad Labem Zoo. After their film appearances, they were confiscated from Slaughter and remain at Ústí Zoo. Also in Eastern Europe, a non-CITES country with a new reputation for illegal dealings, is Yugoslavia, the country to which the Bangkok 6 were headed. And it's a Yugoslavian Peter van der Bunt has arranged to meet. Milka Knesević-Vašković has information about smuggled orangutans, including the Bangkok 6. Formerly an employee of Belgrade Zoo, she knows of 2 orangutans which arrived there without any proof of origin.
There were 2 female orangs, and they were in poor condition. And personally, Mr. Bojovic, his director of the Belgrade Zoo, told us, workers in Belgrade Zoo, to keep their arrival in secrecy. Because the Belgrade Zoo had only chimps, and it was a big thing for Belgrade public to see orangs for the first time. I think it's the main reason.
So Mr. Bojovic was very eager, very keen to get hold of orangutans.
Yes, I think so. They're still here, they're in Belgrade Zoo, and without documents.
Still no documents? No documents.
And Mr. Bojovic admits that. But he says that doesn't matter, that the only thing, important thing, is to have rare species in Belgrade Zoo.
And it was Vukosav Bojovic who was to have played a key role in the attempt to smuggle the Bangkok 6 orangutans. His zoo would have been the animal's final staging post before Moscow, as planned by Kurt Schaefer.
So I asked my friend in Belgrade if it would be possible if they come as excess luggage in and will be transported from Belgrade by cargo to Moscow. So I asked him, and he said he would help me, and for that he would get 2 gibbons, 2 Simon gibbons.
Have you met Kurt Schaefer?
Yes, in February last year, he came to Belgrade Zoo. He stayed only one day, and I translated the conversation between Bojovic and Kutschefer.
And as overseas inquiries about the Bangkok Six arrived, Milka translated Bojovic's denial of knowing anything about Kurt Schaefer's activities.
It was a lie. I knew that. And I asked him why. Why did he lie? And he didn't want to answer me.
Proddingtorg, the Soviet state company and customer for the Bangkok Six, says the animals were to have gone to a Soviet zoo, but denies any share of the guilt and insists it had no part in the wrongdoing of their suppliers. The question remains, who organized the plot? The key to the mystery seems to be the identity of M. An informant with inside information contacted Shirley McGreal. He suggested that M is an American trader.
And then he began to tell me the whole story of the shipment, how it had initially been unsuccessful and the orangs had been delivered to the airport and taken away, kept in Singapore. And he started to tell me a story that this shipment had been planned from Miami in association with some other animal dealers, and he was quite definite and insistent on that.
McGreal received copies of messages the contact said were sent by the American.
One of the faxes or telexes referred to a contract number which was listed out and said, please be sure that this is put on all the crates. And then this happened to be the identical number on the crates in which the Bangkok Six was shipped from Singapore to Bangkok. So we saw that number on the crates.
Another fax was one that had urged Kurt Schaefer to be careful about carrying documents bearing M's name in case of discovery. And it gave a telephone number for replies. 305 is the Miami code. Miami is a center for American animal dealers involved in import and export. And this is the expensive home the intercepted telephone number belongs to. It is owned by one Matthew Block. Matthew Block started in the animal business as a teenager. He has made his fortune mainly by supplying primates for scientific research. A very private man, he often arrives at work before dawn. His company, Worldwide Primates, trades legitimately in hundreds of animals. It displays no sign.
Hello, can I speak to Mr. Block, please?
Mr. Block is in a meeting. Can I take a message?
What time will he be out of his meeting?
I'm not sure, sir. Can I take a message?
No, I'll call back later. Thank you.
All morning we tried to reach him. When the elusive Mr. Block finally emerged, he took exception to our cameras and beat a silent retreat.
Mr. Block?
No answer to us, but he called the police.
They've told me to tell you that they don't want to be interviewed, filmed, whatever.
Yeah.
So, that's...
I mean, there have been some very serious allegations made against Mr. Block regarding smuggled primates. We just
Sir,
we
let
want
me explain something to you. When I wear this uniform, I have no opinion on anything like that.
Sure.
Whether the allegations are immaterial to the police department.
I understand.
Just stay off the property, you have no problem with us.
Worldwide.
Yes, is Mr. Block out of his meeting yet, please?
No, he's not out of his meeting. I don't know when he will be, sir.
I see. I mean, is going to be a long meeting?
I'm afraid so.
While we were trying to speak to Mr. Block, the company van was being backed into a side entrance. The shutter was closed. Minutes later, Mr. Block made his exit, or pretended to. The windows of the van had been masked over. Matthew Block is now under investigation by the US Fish and Wildlife Service. He has always denied any involvement whatsoever in the Bangkok 6 affair, though he does admit to business contacts with Kurt Schaefer. The name Matthew Block's been linked to the Bangkok 6 affair. Was he the man who arranged the deal?
I told you before, I don't talk about any names. I don't know anything about this.
Ten orangutans are going home to Indonesia, a moving but small gesture in the context of a continuing trade in the great apes.
Romeo?
Yeah, Romeo.
Romeo. And who's the other one?
Yeah, he's sick. Oh, okay. It's the one you saw him finish.
I'm really pleased that he's as healthy as he is.
Is he a Romeo?
He's in good shape after the flight?
Yes, it looks like it. He's running the show as usual.
Are you going to be sad to say goodbye to him?
Oh, of course, but this is where he belongs. He doesn't belong in Taiwan. He definitely doesn't belong in my apartment, so he's on his way home, and that's the most important thing.
And how long will it be before he's swinging in the trees of Kalimantan?
Well, that is up to Dr. Goldicus. After she takes a look at them and urges them to be in good health, she'll decide when they go back. And he's pretty strong, and he's pretty confident, so I think he'll be back in the trees pretty quickly.
The Taiwan 10 will join the survivors of the Bangkok 6. Perhaps eventually they will go wild again, although it's going to take a long time before they've got the necessary confidence and abilities. Deprived of their mothers, they've been denied a vital education in survival. Rescued from a cruel trade, these few orangutans have a chance of life in the forest. But what man gives back to some, he's taken away from so many.
Report from Channel 4's Bonnie Anderson, and the focus is one Miami man.
It was a movie, but it accurately portrayed the slaughter of highly endangered mother apes by poachers who then illegally sell the baby primates on the lucrative black market. 2 years ago, these 6 baby orangutans worth tens of thousands of dollars each were intercepted at the Bangkok airport en route to the Soviet Union. They had no food or water.
They were in absolutely horrible condition. They're terribly ill. They'd been shipped in crates with just little pencil diameter holes in, completely sealed, label birds. 3 were shipped upside down, and they were just traumatized.
A baby orangutan is 97% genetically identical to a human. And the shipment was detected because workers at the airport in Thailand heard cries they thought were human babies.
4 of the internationally protected orangutans died from their ordeal. European authorities convicted 1 smuggler. A Miami grand jury has now indicted the man federal officials believe was behind the illegal scheme. He is Matthew Block, an exotic animal dealer who specializes in selling primates to medical research laboratories. He also specializes in avoiding the controversy surrounding this type of trade. Block runs his multi-million-dollar business out of this Miami warehouse. From South Carolina, animal rights activist Shirley McGreal urged federal authorities to investigate this business and whether Block was involved with the smuggling of the Bangkok 6.
And then we tried to find out who was behind it, and the German government gave us a pack of documents which indicated that Matthew Block might be involved, including a lot of telexes and faxes.
McGreal gave American investigators copies of those documents. To the now convicted smuggler, a note asking about the 3 male and 3 female monkeys for Moscow. It was signed M. A second message: please be careful about carrying documents with my name, copies of telexes, etc. on your person or bags just in case you have any problems. Yet it gave a Miami phone number to call for last-minute news. It was signed once again by M. A BBC reporter who called the number last year says it rang through to Block's home, and M. McGreal and investigators believe is Matthew Block. Block will not comment publicly, but he did file a civil suit against McGreal for sending his customers documents like the Centers for Disease Control letter, which documented conditions found at Block's business. In some cages, the letter says, monkeys were observed to defecate, urinate, and drop other wastes through to the cage immediately below. Block's federally required registration as an animal importer was revoked, but later restored once the conditions were corrected. But of greater concern to animal activists and zookeepers worried about the survival of endangered species is the issue of poaching, smuggling, and taking animals from the wild. Zoo orangutans are now all captive bred.
There is extensive mortality, not only in acquiring the animal, in fact, in the purpose of killing a mother to get a baby, but many of those babies never make it to their final destination. You have a very limited gene pool, limited amount of animals in the wild, and any little baby you take out is doing a tremendous amount of damage to that overall population.
Many apes on the black market are sold for big bucks to private collectors or third world zoos who don't follow international standards for animal care or accreditation. For the sake of wild apes, animal rights activists and policing authorities hope Block's indictment sends a strong message not only to suppliers of black market primates, but also to the buyers. Now, National Geographic will be airing a 1-hour program on the ape trade on March 15th at 9 o'clock at night on TBS. And tomorrow, Steve, Matthew Block goes to federal court for his arraignment. Steve?
What a tragedy. Thank you very much, Bonnie.
לא תכנע אותי לא על סכרת ולא על סכרת. אתה יכול לדבר חופשי, זה לא שופט, הוא שופט. תגיד לך אתה תשמע. לא תכנע אותי לא על סכרת ולא על סכרת. אתה יכול לדבר חופשי, זה לא שופט, הוא שופט. תגיד לך אתה תשמע. אלה גבוהים? ועד איזה גיל? כן. אתה מבין קצת הגיל הזה, עד איזה גיל? וכמה גבוהים? מתי הוא יוצא מכאן למעבדות? 2, 3? לא, כמה זה משחק? בגיל משחק. אתה יכול לעשות גם בגיל הזה עם משחק. איזה קוף? איזה קוף הזה? מבחינת ותק בזמן זה יכול ללמוד. אלה Hey,